አደባባይ ሚዲያ ለወገንተኝነት ጀርባውን የሰጠ ጊዜያዊ ጥቅምን አምቢኝ ብለው የዘመመን ሊያቀና እውነትና እውቀትን አስከትሎ ኢኮኖሚያዊና መንፈሳዊ መረጃዎችን እንካችሁ ይላል። ትኩስ ዜናዎች፣ ዘጋቢ ፊልሞች፣ ጥልቅ ትንታኔዎች በአደባባይ ሚዲያ ይቀርባሉ። ራእያችን ጊዜውን ያማከለና ዘመኑን የዋጀ በእውነት የነጠሩ መረጃዎችን በእውቀት ደግፎ ለሀገራችን ብሎ ለዓለም ሕዝብ ማዳረስ ነው። አድሬሳችን አደባባይ ኢንፎ ሚዲያ @gmail.com፣ በዌብሳይታችን www.adebabai.com። ያግኙን፣ ይርዱን። የሁላችንም ስለሆነች ኢትዮጵያ በአደባባይ እንዘግባለን። አደባባይ ሚዲያ
Adebabay media yene now. Adebabay media yenem now.
Adebabay media yene now.
Adebabay media የሁላችንም ነው።
የኛ ቤተሰብ አደባባይ ሚዲያን ይመለከታል። የእናንተስ?
Do your parents watch Adebabay media?
Watch, follow, subscribe and help አደባባይ። አደባባይ ሚዲያ ለወገንተኝነት ጀርባውን የሰጠ።
ሰላም ጤና ይስጥልኝ አደባባይ ሚዲያ ቤተሰቦች፣ እንደምን አረፈዳችሁ፣ እንደምን ዋላችሁ፣ እንደምን አመሻችሁ። በኢትዮጵያና በመላው ዓለም ሆናችሁ የምትከታተሉን ውድ ተመልካቾቻችን ጤና ይስጥልን ብለናል። የዕለተ አርብ ስርጭታችን ከዚህ ሰዓት ጀምሮ በቀጥታ ወደ እናንተ የሚደርስ ይሆናል። የሳምንቱ የመጨረሻ ቀን ነው። ዕለቱ ደግሞ አርብ ነው። በኢትዮጵያ አቆጣጠር አዲሱ ዓመት የመጨረሻው የሳምንቱ ቀን ነው ማለት ነው። እንዴት አላችሁ? እንዴት ናችሁ? በያላችሁበት የአደባባይ ሚዲያ ዝግጅት እየተከታተላችሁ ያላችሁትን በሙሉ ከልብ እናመሰግናለን። እናንተ ቀድማችሁ የገባችሁ ላይክ፣ ሼር ያደርጋችሁ ያላችሁትን እያመሰገን ለሌሎቹ እንዲታደርሱ ደግሞ በዚሁ አጋጣሚ ልናሳስብ እንወዳለን። የዛሬው ዝግጅታችን አጠር ያለ መርሃ ግብር ነው ያዘጋጀነው። በተለይም ደግሞ በመጪው እሁድ በዚህ በዋሽንግተን ዲሲ በዩኤስ አሜሪካ ካፒታል ዋሽንግተን ዲሲ ዋይት ሃውስ ፊት ለፊት ኢትዮጵያውያን ታላቅ ሰላማዊ ሰልፍ ያደርጋሉ። ይህ ሰላማዊ ሰልፍ ደግሞ በርካታ መልእክቶች ያሉት ቢሆንም በዋናነት ግን የኖ ሞር ሙቭመንት ድጋሚ ወደ ስትሬት የሚመጣበትና እንደዚሁም ዲስአርም ቲፒኤልኤፍ የሚል መልእክቶችን ለዋይት ሃውስ የምናደርስበት እንደዚሁም ለአሜሪካ የኮንግረስ ሰዎች እና ለሚመለከታቸው ሁሉ የምናደርስበት ሰልፍ ነው። በዚህ ሰልፍ በርካታ ኢትዮጵያውያን እንደዚሁም የኢትዮጵያ ወዳጆች ኤርትራውያን እና ሶማሊያውያን የሆርን አፍሪካ ወይም ደግሞ የምስራቅ አፍሪካ ሀገሮች ነዋሪዎችም በሙሉ እንግዲህ ይሳተፋሉ እንጠብቃለን። በርካቶችም ተጋብዘዋል። በዚህ ሰልፍ ዙሪያ ደግሞ ሰልፉን የሚያስተባብሩ አስተባባሪዎችን ዛሬ ጋብዘን በሰልፉ ዓላማ ዙሪያ ትንሽ ማብራሪያ እንዲሰጡን እናደርጋለን። እንግዶቻችን አቶ ከባዱ በላቸውና እንደዚሁም ጋዜጠኛ ሔርሜላ አረጋዊ ናቸው። እነሱን ይዘን እንመለሳለን። ከዛ በፊት ግን ይህንን መርሃ ግብር ያሰናዳውና የዘወትር የአርብ መርሃ ግብራችን አዘጋጅ አቶ አቤል ጋሼን ወደ መድረኩ ጋብዘዋለሁ። ጤና ይስጥልኝ አቤል፣ አርብ ሆኖ ድጋሚ ተገናኘን።
ሰላም ጤና ይስጥልኝ ፍርዱ፣ እንደምን አለ? የተከበራችሁ አደባባይ ሚዲያ ታዳሚዎቻችን እንዴት ዋላችሁ? የጊዜ ባለቤት የሆነ ልዑል እግዚአብሔር ክብር ምስጋና ይግባው። ጊዜን ባርኮ ቀድሶ ስለ ሀገራችን ህቅታችን ስለሆነች ኢትዮጵያ እንድንነጋገር ይህን ጊዜ ፈቅዶልናል። እንግዲህ በዚህ ሰዓት እንደ ሁል ጊዜው ስለ ኢትዮጵያ ማክለን የኢትዮጵያን ህዝብ በተመለከተ ደህንነቱ ስለሚያስጨንቀን፣ ሰላሙ ስለሚያስጨንቀን፣ እድገቱ ስለሚያስጨንቀን በዚህ ጉዳይ ላይ መምከር ሁልጊዜም የምናደርገው የህይወታችንን ጥሪ አድርገን የምንቀበለው ነገር ነው። በዚህም ዛሬ እንዲሁ ስለ ኢትዮጵያ የሚጮሁ ስለ ኢትዮጵያ የሚሟገቱ በኢትዮጵያ ጉዳይ ራሳቸውን አሳልፈው የሚሰጡ ወንድሞች እህቶችን ዛሬ ጋብዘናል። በተለይም ደግሞ ባለፈው 2 ዓመት ውስጥ የኢትዮጵያን ጉዳይ በተመለከተ በኢንፎርሜሽን ዲስኢንፎርሜሽን ያለውን ከፍተኛ የፕሮፓጋንዳ ውድቀት የመጣብንን በጠቅላላ ለመመለስ እና እንደገና ኢትዮጵያን ወደ ልዕልና ወደ ከፍታ ለማውጣት ከፍተኛ ዋጋ የከፈለች እህታችን ጋዜጠኛ ሔርሜላ አረጋዊ እንዲሁ ከመካከላችን ትገኛለች። ወንድማችን ከባዱ በዲሲ በምናደርጋቸው እንቅስቃሴዎች በጠቅላላ በኢትዮጵያ ጉዳዮች በብዙ መስክ የሚታገል ወንድማችን ነው። ሁለቱን ይዘን እንቀርባለን፣ እንመለሳለን።
በጣም አመሰግናለሁ አቶ አቤል። እንግዲህ ሁለቱም የዛሬ እንግዶቻችን ለአደባባይ ሚዲያ እንግዶች አይደሉም፣ ደግሞ አዲስ አይደሉም። ከዚህ በፊትም በተለይ ኢትዮጵያውያን በኒውዮርክም በዋሽንግተን ዲሲም በተለያዩ ስቴቶች ሰልፍ በሚያደርጉ ጊዜ የኢትዮጵያን ኬዝ በሚያነሱ ጊዜ ከፊት የምናገኛቸው ናቸው። አቶ ከባዱም በዚህ ጉዳይንን በማስተባበር የሚታወቅ ወንድማችን ነው። ከዚህ በፊትም መረጃዎችን በአደባባይ ሚዲያ ሲያቀብለን የምናውቀው ትግ ወንድማችን ነው። እንደዚሁም እንግዲህ ጋዜጠኛ ሔርሜላ አረጋዊ ደግሞ በተለይ የአሸባሪው ቡድን TPLF በኢትዮጵያ በሰሜን እዝ ወታደሮች ላይ ግፍ ከፈጸመ በኋላ እና ጦርነቱ ከጀመረ በኋላ የኢትዮጵያን ኬዝ ለዓለም እያስረዳችና እየገለጠች የምትገኝ አሜሪካዊት ኢትዮጵያዊት ጋዜጠኛ ናት። በተለይ ደግሞ በቅርቡ ደግሞ በሔርሜላ ቲቪ የምትቀርባቸው እንግዶችና የምታነሳቸው ኢሹዎች እና ውይይቶችን እንከታተላለን። አሁን በቅርቡ ደግሞ የተለያዩ ስፔሶችን በትዊተር በማዘጋጀት በርካታ ኢትዮጵያውያን እና የኢትዮጵያ ወዳጆች፣ የቀድሞ ዲፕሎማቶች፣ የተለያዩ ሀገር አምባሳደሮችም ጭምር እየገቡ የኢትዮጵያን ኬዝ የሚረዱበትና እሷም የኢትዮጵያን ኬዝ የምታስረዳባቸው መርሃ ግብሮች እጅግ በርካቶች ናቸው። ዛሬ ደግሞ በተለየ ሁኔታ እሁድ ስለተዘጋጀው ሰልፍ ለአደባባይ ሚዲያ ተመልካቾችና ታዳሚዎች ለማስረዳት እንግዲህ በመካከላችን ተገኝተዋል። ምናልባት የሔርሜላ ኔትወርክ ትንሽ ወጣ ገባ ይላል፣ ጉዞ ላይ ነው ያለችው ይመስለኛል። እሱን እንደምን ታግሰን እንግዲህ ቆይታ የምናደርግ ይሆናል ማለት ነው። እንግዶቻችን እንጋብዛለን። ከልብ አመሰግናለሁ አቶ ከባዱ ባላቸው፣ እንደዚሁም ሔርሜላ፣ ሁለታችሁንም ከልብ አድርጌ አመሰግናለሁ። መድረኩ ያንተ ነው አቤል።
አመሰግናለሁ። ዌልካም ሔርሜላ፣ ዌልካም ከባዱ። how are you? I think in the best interest of getting the information well, I'm going to moderate this in both Amharic and the English language. ሔርሜላ, I know she's very good in both languages, but I think she, for the sake of clarity, she would prefer to communicate with the English language. Welcome ሔርሜላ. Before I start this program, I really want to pay a tribute to our sister ሔርሜላ for what she has delivered, what she has done for the last 18 months for fighting the disinformation campaign that was waged against Ethiopia and still going. But the U-turn that we made in that regard, if it is attributed to a group or a person, ሔርሜላ played a great role in doing that by going against the war waged against Ethiopia by international forces, by the TPLF cronies. The media has been major, fighting Ethiopia in many ways. That disinformation war, Western economic embargoes that have been waged against Ethiopia, the diplomatic propaganda and the military intervention. All this has been a major problem, and ሔርሜላ has played a great role, and we're eternally indebted to what she has done all this time. And she has continued to fight, especially the No More movement that she has waged by co-founding it with Nabiyu and also Simon, the Ethiopian guy. That movement has played a great role to change the landscape, if I can say that, in terms of the information war. And ሔርሜላ has played a great role in that. And with her also, we have ከባዱ, who has also played a great role in organizing different rallies and waging the war against TPLF, in the information war, or in rallying people against this movement. ሔርሜላ, if you're with me, let's start with you to get the genesis and the history of No More, so it helps us as a way to understand this movement up to what has come today. So ሔርሜላ, do you hear me?
I think she's out. ኢንተርኔቷ ትንሽ ያስቸግራል። አቤል ወደ ከባዱ ማለት ነው።
ለከባዱ እንኳን ደህና መጣህ ወንድማችን ከባዱ። እንዳልኩት በዚህ በዋሽንግተን ዲሲ አካባቢ ቀደም ብሎ በሚደረጉት ቲፒኤልኤፍ ለመዋጋት ለውጡ ከመምጣት በፊትም በነበረው እንቅስቃሴ የቲፒኤልኤፍን ከፍተኛ የሆነ በሀገራችን ለሚደርስ ጉዳት በመቃወም ህዝብን አስተባብሮ የመጣው ለውጥ እስኪመጣ ድረስ በተደረጉ እንቅስቃሴዎች ውስጥ በፊት ለፊት በግንባር የምናገኛቸው ወንድማችን ከባዱ የሚጠቀስ ነው። ከባዱ አቶ ከባዱ የሚለው ወንድምነትና ጓደኝነታችን እንዳያረቅብኝ ብዬ ነው። ለማንኛውም እንኳን ደህና መጣ። በጠቅላላውን ወደዚህ ከመሄዴ በፊት አንተ የተንቀሳቀስክባቸው ድርጅቶች ያሉበትን ደረጃ ዓላማቸውን ብታስረዳ ነው። እነማን ናቸው ድርጅቶች? ምን አይነት ስራዎችን ይሰራላችሁ? በዚህ በኩል ያለ መግቢያ ቢኖረን።
እሺ አቤል፣ እንዲሁም አደባባይ ሚዲያ ሁላችሁንም ለሰጣችሁን ለኔም በግሌ ለሰጣችሁኝ እድል ማመስገን ፈልጋለሁ። በዛ መጀመር ፈልጋለሁ። ሌላው ደግሞ ከሔርሜላ ጋራ ቀርቤ የአባትና የልጅ የጄኔሬሽን ቅብብሎሽ አይነት ውይይት ለማድረግ በመምጣቴ በጣም ደስ ይለኛል። ትልቅ ኩራት አለኝ። አይ ሆፕ ኮኔክሽኗ ተስተካክሎ አብራን ትዘልቃለች ብዬ እገምታለሁ። በአቤል እንደጠቀስከው ያው መቼም አንድ አባባል አለኝ፣ አሜሪካ ውስጥ ልኖር እችላለሁ እንጂ ታሪኬ የጀመረው ኢትዮጵያ ነው የሚል የምወደው አባባል አለ። ከሂውማኒቲም ከሁሉም አኳያ ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ያሉ ከ100 ሚሊዮን በላይ የሆኑ ወገኖቻችን በክፉ ወይም በመጥፎ አስተዳደር ሲሰቃዩ ተፈጥሮ ወይም ፈጣሪ በቂ ሀብት የተፈጥሮ ሀብት ለግሷት እያለች ታታሪ ህዝብ ሆኖ እያለ ሰላማዊ ህዝብ ሆኖ እያለ ግን በአስተዳደር ብልሹነት ምክንያት ለዘመናት ሲሰቃይ በማየት እንዲሁም ደግሞ ከዚህ በፊት የነበረኝ የስራ እንዳጋጣሚ የስራ ልምድ ወይም የስራ ሁኔታ በዩኤስኤአይዲ ውስጥ ሆኜ በምሰራበት ጊዜ ያየሁት በቅርብ ያየሁት ነገር ነበርና የኢትዮጵያ ህዝብ በድህነትም ይሁን ጦርነት መሰቃየት የማይገባው ህዝብ ነው። ይሄ የመጣው ከአስተዳደር ብልሹነት ነው እና ያ አስተዳደር ብልሹነት እንዲስተካከል የሚደረጉ ጥረቶችን በግልም ይሁን አብሮኝ ከሚሰሩ ጓደኞቼ ጋራ በዓላማ ከምንስማማ ጓደኞቼ ጋራ ማንቀሳቀስ ማካሄድ የህሊና ግዴታ ነበርና ይሄንን ነው በግሌ ሳደርግ የኖርኩት። ግን ብዙ ድርጅቶች ጋራ ተባበራለሁ። ይሄንን ዓላማቸው ነው የሚወስነው። ምን አይነት ዓላማ ይበጃል ወይ ለህዝብ ይጠቅማል ወይ ብለን ነው ብዬ ነው የማየውና አሁን በስተመጨረሻ በሰላምና አንድነት ለኢትዮጵያ የዋሽንግተን ዲሲ ግብረ ኃይል የሚባለው ስብስብ ውስጥ እንደ አባል ሆኜ በሚችለው መንገድ ሁሉ የበኩሌን ለማበርከት እሞክራለሁ። እንዲሁም ደግሞ በዚህ አሜሪካ በምንኖር ኢትዮጵያኖች እንደ አሜሪካ ኗሪነትና ዜግነት እንዳለን ኢትዮጵያዊ አሜሪካኖች በአሜሪካ ፖለቲካ ውስጥ የእኛን ኮሚኒቲ ፍላጎት የሚያራምድ የፖለቲካል አድቮካሲ እንቅስቃሴ ከሚያደርጉ ግሩፖች ግዲን ኤፓክ የተለያዩ ግሩፖች ጋራ በመተባበር አሜሪካ ፖለቲክስ ውስጥ በመሳተፍ የኢትዮጵያና የአሜሪካን የጋራ ለኔ በግሌ የማይጋጩ ፍላጎቶች ፕሮሞት ለማድረግ እንሞክራለን። አሁን ሔርሜላ ተመልሳለች። እድሉን ደግሞ ለሔርሜላ ላስተላልፍ።
Thank you, ሔርሜላ, for coming back. It's a great honor and privilege for me to have this conversation with you. I have been saying that any Ethiopian should pay tribute for what you have accomplished in the last 2 years in helping Ethiopia come back again in the fight against TPLF, the misinformation and disinformation campaign. I'm sure history will have its own place for you to record and tell the future generation of what you have accomplished, and we're proud of you. I think you're a great model for our children, because what you have accomplished is very magical in a certain way, because we needed that kind of new trajectory on this war, and you have delivered on it, and I'm eternally indebted to you, like every Ethiopian, for what you have accomplished. I think by now everybody knows what ሔርሜላ has accomplished, what she's doing. She has been a journalist for Al Jazeera and also for CBS. Ever since she started this campaign, because of the whole new dynamics that she faced, she has started her own independent program, media program, that's ሔርሜላ TV, is what we know. She's an independent journalist, but more so, she has dedicated her life in helping Ethiopia come back to its stature as a country for peace. She's fighting the fight needed in many ways, and I can say she has paid a huge price in doing this. I'm sure that will be a different topic to discuss. Now, ሔርሜላ, thank you for coming again. To help our audience, please help us understand the genesis and the history of No More, and how it started, what it has accomplished, where it will be going, where it is now. That helps us in a way to kind of frame this conversation for today.
Thank you, Abel, for the kind words. I mean, I think that God is all in this. I mean, I didn't just show up, kind of in a bubble. I think a lot of work was done before me, and just the timing was right. I really do feel like it was God's timing. And I think the thing about the No More movement that has become very clear, and I think was clear to many of us in the beginning, is it's going to be an ongoing process. The work continues, and it's going to continue for a very long time. When we all got out there and said no more in November, it was a declaration, but it was not an end to something. It was kind of just standing on our own 2 feet together, united all over the world, saying, we know what's going on. This is becoming black and white. The truth is this. It's not what mainstream media outlets are saying, and we're going to stand united and fight it. And we're still fighting it, and we're going to continue to fight it for a very long time. I would say generations. This is the beginning of something that we want to be different than past generations. What we're saying no more to is this disinformation about Ethiopia. Ethiopia has often had its stories told by outsiders. I mean, stories of, I know we have the pride within the country, but on the world stage, it's not always us that gets to tell that story. And that's true even now, and that has to change. And so we are saying no more to that disinformation about Ethiopia, to outsiders telling the stories about Ethiopia. And then that leading to division, as we see ethnic division being the primary one under the EPRDF era. And then we're so sick of conflict. We're so sick of armed conflict and war. Every generation has seen at least one war, maybe two, maybe three in some cases. And that has to be something that we can say no more to. So on Sunday, when we get together in front of the White House at 2 p.m., it's Ethiopians, Eritreans, other African diaspora, our anti-war allies, saying we want this to be the beginning of a new era, and we're going to work together to make sure that happens. We want a Horn of Africa that can decide its own destiny. Much of Ethiopia's destiny in so many ways has been partly decided by outside interference. Yes, in many cases we've been able to push it off or fight it off, but not always 100%. And that leaves leftover history in Ethiopia that we then have to deal with, and that's true in every generation. So I think what we're saying to the White House is, let's have a more equal partnership. Let's not have a situation where this other superpower is constantly intervening into the country's issues. It's over 120 million people in Ethiopia alone. It's a very large region. And yes, there are issues within the country and elements within the country that are a problem. But if the outside interference, at least based on, that provides either diplomatic cover or actually provides other kind of assistance, if that was not there, our issues would not grow to be what they are. The TPLF was not created by themselves. They had a lot of outside help to get into power. Even in 1991, when they came into power, it was with the backing of the West during that transition between, the capitalism and communism around the world. And then they constantly got diplomatic cover, whether or not the West wanted the TPLF to operate the way that it did not keep it, or did not speak up like the democratic voice or the democratic country that it says it is. So we're just asking everybody to actually be what they say they are. We're asking the United States to be what they say they are and condemn the TPLF. It's been 2 years of a devastating war. And if they do not support what the TPLF is doing, and if they do support democracy, then say it. We don't need to keep it vague at this point, because that itself has consequences. People are dying, and we should be able to say enough is enough.
Thank you very much, ሔርሜላ. I think if Kabado is there, I would continue, but I see it's like he has his technique. I see Kabado እንግዲህ በዚህ በቅድም ሔርሜላ በገለጠችው አይነት ይሄ ትግል ከማንኛውም ጊዜ በላይ አሁን በጣም የሚያስፈልገን እንቅስቃሴ ነው። የሚያስፈልገንም የኢትዮጵያን ህልውና የሚፈታተኑ ኃይላት ከምንም ጊዜ በላይ በግልጽም ሆነ በስውር የሚያደርጓቸው ትግሎች አሉ። በዚህ በኩል የዲያስፖራው ኮሚኒቲ ያደረገው ከፍተኛ ተጋድሎ በትክክል የሚታወቅ ነው። በዚህ በተለይም ደግሞ በዋሽንግተን ዲሲ አካባቢ የዚህ የስልጣን መቀመጫም በመሆኑ ኮንግረስም ዋይት ሃውስም በዚህ አካባቢ በመኖርና ይህንን በኢትዮጵያ ላይ የሚደረጉ ጫናዎችን የሚጭኑ ኃይላት በዚህ አካባቢ በመኖራቸው ከፍተኛ የሆነ እንቅስቃሴ የሚያስፈልግበትም የተደረገበትም የሚደረግበትም አካባቢ ነው። ይህንን ዘመቻ ለማድረግ ግብረ ኃይሉም ከዚያ ወዲህ በተለየ መንገዱ የሰላም ድርጅቱን የተቋቋመው ድርጅት የሚያደርጋቸው ተዋጽኦዎች በመሪነትም ቦታ ውስጥ እዚያ እንዳለ አውቃለሁኝ በመሳተፍ ይህንን ስታደርጉ ጠቅላላ የዚህ ድርጅት አቋሙ ባየነው መንገድ ኢትዮጵያን የመርዳት የመሆኑን ያክል ብዙ ፈተናዎች የገጠሙት ቢሆንም ይሄን ትግሉን ቀጥሎ ዛሬም ይሄ እንደሚያስፈልግ በሴፕቴምበር 18 አሁንም ለሁለተኛ ጊዜ ሌላ ሰልፍ ተጠርቷል። የዚህ ሰልፍ አዘጋጆች በጠቅላላ እነማን ናቸው? ማንን ነው የምንጠብቀው? በዚህ ቀን ምን አይነት ፕሮግራም ተዘጋጅቷል? ምንድነው ልናደርግ ያሰብነው? አዳማጮቻችን እነማን ናቸው? እስቲ በጠቅላላ ስለ ዝግጅቱ መግለጫ በሰጠን አተከባዱ ድምጽ አይሰማንም ምናልባት
Sorry. So, Majamarya, I would like to thank you, ሔርሜላ, for that eloquent description of the problem and the solution as well. እኔ እስከማውቀው ድረስ የዩኤስ ገቨርንመንት ከመለስ ብለን ብናይ ከካርተር ጊዜ ጀምሮ በዛ ጊዜ አንድ ፖሊሲ ነበራቸው። ፎሬን ፖሊሲያቸው በሙሉ was about fighting communism everywhere. So if they find any group, it doesn't matter what kind of nature it has, as long as it is fighting a communist regime in power, they will support with everything they can. And that's how they picked Mujahideen in Afghanistan. That's how, at the same time, that's how they picked TPLF in Ethiopia. የሚያሳዝነው ነገር that unholy marriage, it continued for too long. And they brought them to power and they kept them there for almost 3 decades. And they had ample time to see that this group is not worth to support. With respect to the American values. America እንደምናውቀው በዓለም ላይ ዲሞክራሲ human rights and development ፕሮሞት በማድረግ ነው ቫልዩ የሚታወቀው። ግን ያንን በምን ተአምር ያንን የማይመጥን ግሩፕ ለ30 ዓመት ስልጣን ላይ እንዲቆይ ያደረገው የኢትዮጵያ ህዝብ ታግሎ መስዋዕትነት ከፍሎ መከራውን አይቶ ከስልጣን ገሸሽ ያደረጋቸው ለዛውም እንደሌላው ጊዜ ጨርሷቸው ገድሏቸው ቡድኑ አጥፍቶ አይደለም። እንደው ከስልጣን ገሸሽ ብሎ በአዲስ መልክ ኢትዮጵያን እንደገና ተባብረው በተሻለ ስርዓት ላይ እንዲቀጥሉ ነበር እድል የሰጣቸው። ቲፒኤልኤፍ ይሄን አልፈለገም። የአሜሪካ መንግስትም ይሄን በትክክል አልተረዳው። to this date ኤትኒክ ኤክስትሪሚስት የሆነ ቴሮሪዝምን እንደ ሜካኒዝም ተጠቅሞ ኢትዮጵያን ብቻ አይደለም መላ አካባቢውን ሆርን ኦፍ አፍሪካን ክራይሲስ ውስጥ ኬዎስ ውስጥ ለመክተት ዓላማው አድርጎ የሚንቀሳቀስን ቡድን ሲሆን ከኢትዮጵያና ከኤርትራ መንግስት ጋር ተባብረው ኮንትሮል ማድረግ ዲሳርም ማድረግ አስገድደው ወደ ሰላም እንዲመጣ ማድረግ ሲገባቸው እንደ ኢኳል ሌጂቲሜት ቡድን አድርገው ካልተደራደራችሁ አንተምተው እንደውም እንደዛ አይነት ጦርነት እያካሄዱ ለምን መብራት አትለቁላቸውም፣ ስልክ አትለቁላቸውም፣ መንገድና እንደምናስከፍቱላቸውም ጥፋተኞች እናንተ ናችሁ የሚል አጉል የውሸት ትርክት ይዘው ያንን ይዘው መንቀሳቀሳቸው በጣም የሚያሳዝን ነው። የኛ እንቅስቃሴ ይሄ የአሜሪካ አመለካከት ትክክል አይደለም። ያንን በምንችለው አቅም በራሊም ይሁን በተለያየ መንገድ የአሜሪካ ባለስልጣናት ተመራጮችን በማነጋገርም ይሁን ለመቀየር ቀስ በቀስ የሚደረግ ጥረት ነው። ውጤት እያመጣ ነው ላለው ትንሽ የሚያስቸግረው ምንድነው የዚህ አይነት እንቅስቃሴ እንደ ጦርነት ተኩሰህ ሰው ገለህ ሲወድቅ የምታየው ነገር አይደለም። ማመን አለብህ። you have to believe in it እና ኮንስታንትሊ ዲተርሚን ሆነ ስታደርገዋለህ ሪዛልት ግን ያመጣል። አሁንም ያየነው ብዙ ነገር አለ። ኖ ሞር እንቅስቃሴ ከፍ ብሎ በሚካሄድበት ጊዜ መስማት ብቻ አይደለም፣ ደንግጠው ነበር የአሜሪካ መንግስት። ይሄ ኮሚኒቲ ይሄ የኢትዮጵያና ኤርትራ ኮሚኒቲ እንደውም በእነሱ አባባል ምንድን ነበር ሔርሜላ you can help me the expression they used sort of anti-American sentiment ይዟል ብለው እስከማሰብና ስፔሻል ኢንተለጀንስ ሰዎች አሳይን አድርገው ይህን ኮሚኒቲ ይህን እስከ መከታተል ድረስ ደርሰው ነበር። ያ የሚያሳየን ለኔ ጥረታችን ውጤት እያሳየ ነው፣ አቴንሽን እያገኘ ነው። ለመቀየር ያስቸግራቸው ይሆናል በኦቨርናይት፣ ግን if we continue our effort the same way sooner or later ከዛ ላይ ደግሞ በተጨማሪ ደግሞ on the ground የኢትዮጵያ ህዝብ የኢትዮጵያ መከላከያ እና የኤርትራ መከላከያ ተባብረው ይህንን ቡድን በሚያሸንፉበት ጊዜ የሁለቱ ውጤት የአሜሪካን አቋም ያስቀይራል sooner or later። እንዳላርዝመው ስለ ምርጫ ስለዚህ ሀገር ቮቲንግ ፓርቲሲፔሽን ደግሞ በኋላ ስመለስ እናገራለሁ። ታንክ ዩ።
በጣም አመሰግናለሁ ከባዱ። ታንክ ዩ ሔርሜላ again. Here is a point that Kabadu raised about normally American foreign policy is determined by what is there for me in terms of American interest. There is this principle, I don't have a permanent friend, I don't have a permanent enemy, I have only permanent interest. It seems like, or has been said, this is a governing principle of American foreign policy. Could you help us understand why the Western interest, especially the American interest, has been swayed to TPLF, even if TPLF has nothing to offer, unless there is some intrinsic value in what they are doing in dismantling the Ethiopian institution? What is it that what governs the Western countries and the American government to be so much attached to TPLF to the point where they are willing even to destabilize? I can say that the middle of last year, calling the Ethiopian government was not stable, that people have to leave the country. What drives those kind of agendas? Can you tell?
Well, there's still some things that I don't understand very well, but I can only just tell you what I'm learning from people that have studied this for a very long time. On one hand, TPLF is very loyal in terms of just doing what the West may want it to do in certain interests. They will do it. They will even use their own people to maintain their power. So that is something that any global power might want. In terms of having a proxy in a region, the people around TPLF, whether it's folks from Tigray or anyone that supports it, they're very consistent, almost fascist in nature, in that although you may not agree with what they do, they're reliable and that they're unified for their goal. So there's a few things that we can learn from that, which is the rest of us need to be more unified in our goals so that we can be reliable partners, except we can use truth, we can use the betterment of other people, the poorest people in the region as our stance and as our platform, but we need to be united in terms of trying to get there and not be swayed left and right by things that come up. So in order for anyone to partner within a group, you want to be reliable and unified in that way. I mean, there's, more cynical theories of why the U.S. supports TPLF, and it's because they want to dominate that region and have control over the security apparatus and feel like they have full control of that region, and TPLF provides that. I don't think the current administration provides that. I don't think the Eritrean government provides that, and that may be why they're being demonized. And so, we can take a little bit from our enemies. I think learn from them, and I think the unity is a part of it. And I know we talk about a lot of outside interference, and it's true, and it's very real. And these forces are so much more powerful at this moment than maybe that region is, but there is power that we have also, and that power is in our unity. And so as this movement goes on, we all have to get better. We all have to mature a little bit. We all have to get more educated about what kind of vision that we want for Africa. We have to guard our unity almost more than anything in this moment. I mean, I have learned to let things go. When you want to argue with people within the movement, what I've realized is at this stage, maybe those things are not as important as maintaining our unity. As much as we can facilitate those difficult conversations so people can come to an understanding. But sometimes people come into the situation and it feels like they just want an argument. And I think what I've learned is to try not to give them that, because it disturbs the movement. It makes people feel like something is going wrong, and that's not where we want to focus our energy. So if we're not growing, if those of us working on this are not growing, then we're not doing it right. And so I think in the end, whenever that is, but 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, we will see a better Ethiopia. Will see a better Ethiopians and Eritreans and Somalis in our relationship, and all of us will get better. I mean, I think I will argue all of us are getting better along the way, because you pick up lessons. And so the message this Sunday on the 18th at 2 p.m. At the White House is we want to say no more to disinformation, division, and war, and U.S. intervention in the Horn of Africa. We also are saying hashtag Disarm TPLF. That's a very specific request. I believe that is the beginning of getting to peace negotiations, and I think my mom said it well, Professor Hargoin, unless they disarm, Ethiopia is going to bleed forever. And so that is a very clear action that we can ask for in terms of the Ethiopian government and the U.S. or the Western powers that are trying to mediate. Let them disarm. Let all these kids put down their guns, and then let the adults and the leadership in Tigray have conversations with the federal government of Ethiopia. So if we can at least come to agreement as to what it is that we want and stick with that, disarm TPLF, say no more to these politics of war, I think we will eventually get what we're looking for, and the rest is done by the Ethiopian government, by the people on the ground, by the Eritrean government, by the people on the ground. The Somalis, that are working with us are putting a lot of energy into this, and hopefully that the outcome will be peace.
Thank you very much, ሔርሜላ. I think it is due to pay tribute to Professor Addebabay for what she's doing. My hat's off. I think it's a great contribution, like her daughter, and I think it is in the blood to stand for truth, to stand for the peace and the progress of Ethiopia. It is, as I have said, it's a huge price to pay, but a price worth paying, because nothing is more than standing for truth and standing for the welfare of your people. I think, ሔርሜላ, what makes your story credible and also attractive to anyone who listens to it, it's not like any other journalist now currently going and standing or saying it for the sake of supporting the government or supporting this ideology, or that you had to pay, as I have said, a huge price, because you essentially saw the whole flaw in this whole tragedy that Ethiopia is facing. And I don't think you're saying the government is angel and TPLF is totally this or that. But what you are saying is a total misinformation, disinformation campaign against the people of Ethiopia. And the whole scenario there was not something makes you comfortable. That's what you have been fighting against. And I think the truth finally is coming out, and it's helping you and all of us in this to see the light in a certain way, because at least there is some change in the whole trajectory, it seems like, and probably and eventually the truth will prevail. We're not here to promote an ideology or to promote, say, just the government agenda. That's not what it's about. Peoples of Ethiopia. Now, that said, I think as I have said, the credibility of your story will help eventually Ethiopian people and the Tigrayan people to see the light at the end of the tunnel. In this case, I think what is it that each of us has to do as Ethiopians, that the Tigrayan people also have to do in coming out of this darkness totally, because all of us are in the darkness, and this darkness has to go. And we have power, human power, helped by the Lord, as you have said it. God is with us to get this darkness out of our face and come up, eventually have a peaceful life. So in this regard, what would be your message for the Ethiopians and also for the Tigrayan people in this regard? Because each one of us has a stake to play, but also a special stake for Tigrayans, because they have suffered hugely in many ways than one, and currently. And our heart goes out for all of them, and because they are one of us. We are married in many ways. We have been living together. These are our brothers and sisters like everybody else. And we want to see life coming back. Like it is in Addis. We want it to be in Makale. We want it to be in Aksum. What do you think? What should we do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a heavy question. I mean, we can't really go back and undo anything, but I think the one way forward is, sort of take the opposite of like the TPLF manifesto. So the TPLF manifesto basically created an enemy out of the Amhara people, their neighbors, and it made them the reason that they were poor, or the reason that their issues were what they were. And then it rewrote the story that of Ethiopian pride and made it just the pride of people in Tigray. So it used division in storytelling to do that. So those two things are very, very dangerous, particularly the one where you're, outsourcing your problems. And I, hate to bring my mom up again, or I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but she has some really, solid points on this. She always used to talk about, and still does, that externalizing your problems is not going to help you. Making somebody else responsible for your problems, and then by result solutions, is not going to help you. And it's a really tough lesson sometimes, because you just want to make somebody else, you want to blame it on something else, what you didn't have, what you didn't see, etc. And I make mistakes like everyone else, but one thing that really helps me move forward is when I just kind of recognize that and say, okay, what can I do? And so I think that's where it starts with all of us. Like, what am I doing that could be done better? How can I be better tomorrow? And then when we start there, then we can be better for the people around us. I mean, you can't really do anything for anyone if you're not, doing what you need to do for yourself. So I think if we start there, which means ourselves, and then the Ethiopians that already see eye to eye with us, the Eritreans that already see eye to eye with us, if we can work well together and be strong, and then we can focus on helping Tigray. I really appreciate the sentiment among Ethiopians and Eritreans that I've spoken with about helping Tigray. But what keeps coming to mind to me is, but are we strong though? Is our union strong enough? Are we, is our working model strong enough? Do we have a good cooperation? Can we withstand, things that happen and conflicts that happen? If we can, then we can help another people, like the people in Tigray who are suffering under TPLF. But I think kind of jumping beyond that and thinking that we can help them, we might be disappointed. I think sometimes when you go and try to help somebody else when they're not necessarily ready, or if they're not reaching out, or if the situation doesn't help it, then we can be really disappointed, because sometimes they turn on you, or they blame you. And so I think even for the people of Tigray, and I've heard some really difficult stories. I was just talking to somebody in Addis yesterday that speaks to people in Tigray, and what they're saying is that a lot of, when you go to some whatever hotel where they're drinking or whatever the case, like 40 out of 50 people have disabilities, like they've lost a limb or they've lost an eye, and that's so disturbing. So if that's really the case, I mean, if it's really that bad, then we're definitely going to have a lot of work to do. But I think you can't help people unless they join in. And so I really hope the people of Tigray are tired of all of this, and when they have the space to be able to do so, they will choose a life beyond TPLF, and I have hope that they will.
Thank you very much, ሔርሜላ. ከባዱ welcome back. I think ከባዱ ቅድም እንደሰማው በሔርሜላ ንግግር ውስጥ ከማንኛውም ጊዜ በላይ ያለብን ሁኔታ ለመፍታት በጋራ የመቆምና በዩኒቲ የሚለው ነገር ኮንሴፕት በጣም ድራይቨር ነው እና ዊ ኒድ በጠቅላላ በጋራ መጥተን ይሄንን እንዳንድ ህዝብ በአንድ ልብ መክረን በአንድ ቃል ተናግረን የሀገራችንን ፈተና መፍታት አለብን የሚለው እናምንበታለን። ይሄንን በማድረግ በኩል በተለይ የዲያስፖራውን ኮሚኒቲ በጋራ በማምጣት ባለፈው 8 ወር ከፍተኛ ያየናቸው ትልቅ ስራዎች ነበሩ፣ ግን ደግሞ የሚያሳዝኑ ነገሮችም ተፈጥረዋል። በትክክል መነጋገር ስላለብን የኖሞር ሙቭመንት በሰፊው ከተንቀሳቀሰ በኋላ በ21 ከተማዎች በ31 ከተማዎች ከፍተኛ እንቅስቃሴ አድርገናል። በዚያ በኖሞር እንቅስቃሴ በጊዜው ከፍተኛ የሆነ ዋጋ ተከፍሎበት ነው ዲያስፖራውን ወደ አንድ አካል ማምጣት የተቻለ ነበር። በዚህ ዘመቻ በተለያዩ ከተማ ቅድም አንተ በገለጽከው መንገድ የምዕራባውያን ያስደነገጠ አሜሪካውያን በዚህ ሁኔታ አስበውበት ቅድም እንዳልከው የእነሱን የመረጃ የሚሰበሰቡ ሰዎች ድረስ እስተማግባትና እስተመጠየቅ ያደረሳቸው ነው። የኖሞር ሙቭመንት ወደ አፍሪካን ኮንቴክስት የያዘበት በዚያ እንቅስቃሴው ነበር። ይሄ ይታወቃል። ይሄ ከሆነ በኋላ ጃንዋሪ ላይ ወደ ኢትዮጵያ የዲያስፖራ ኮሚኒቲ ወደ ሀገር በተጠራበት ጊዜ የኢትዮጵያ ጥሪ ነው። ኢትዮጵያ ትፈልገናለች። የደረሰባትን ፈተና ለመፍታት ይሄንን የተደረገውን ነገር ሁሉ ጊዜ የሌለው ሰው ስራውን እየተነሳ ነው ኢትዮጵያ ሄዶ ኢትዮጵያ ሆይ ያለሁሽ በሚፈለገው ነገር ያለበት ጊዜ ነበር። የጠቅላይ ሚኒስትሩ ያደረጉትን ጥሪ ተቀብሎ ዲያስፖራው ከሄደ በኋላ በሚያሳዝን ሁኔታ ያ የተሰበሰበውን መንፈስ የሚሰብር ቅስም የሚሰብር ሁኔታዎች ተፈጠሩ። ያም ደግሞ ራሳቸው ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትሩ አቀዝቅዙት ስለሚል ድረስ ነው ሄዱባቸው ነገሮች የጎዳው እንደሆነ በግልጽ ስለሚታወቅም በግልጽም ስለምናገር ነውና እንዲህ ያሉ ነገሮች ተፈጥረው የተበተነው ዲያስፖራ ጃንዋሪ ላይ ተመጠን በተደረገ የመጀመሪያው 6600 HR 6600 ለመቃወም ሰልፍ ስንጠራ 400 ሰው ቢሆን አልነበረም። ኮንግረስ ላይ በነበረን ስብሰባ እንዲህ ያለ ችግር ገጥሞታል ዲያስፖራው። ዛሬ ያንን ሁሉ ዋጋ ከከፈልን በኋላ በሀገራችን ጉዳይ ላይ ዛሬ የአሜሪካ መንግስት ወይም ጠላቶቻችን TPLF እንደሚፈልገው ሆነን ተበትነናል የሚል ተቃውሞ ይሄ ችግር አለ እንደምታውቀውና በምን አይነት ሁኔታ ነው ህዝቡን ማስረዳት የሚቻለው? ሀገርንና መንግስትና ፖለቲከኞችን ለይቶ ለሀገር ሲባል ለወገን ሲባል ዛሬም ቢሆን የሚፈለግብንን ስራ መስራት አለብን በጋራ። መንግስት ወይም ደግሞ የመንግስት አካላት የሚሰሩት ስህተትና ሊኖር ይችላል አለ። በግልጽም ደግሞ የኖሞር ሙቭመንት የነበረውን ፍሌቨር እንዲያጣ ከሆነበት ምክንያት አንዱ እንዲህ ያሉ የተደረጉ ጥያቄዎች ነበሩ። ዲዛስተርስ የሆነ PR ሚዲያ ሪሌሽንሺፕ ነው እንደሆነው በምን አይነት ነው መስተካከል ያለበት? የኢትዮጵያ ህዝብ ውጭ ያለው በተለይ አውቀው እንደገና ተመልሶ ለሀገሩ ሊቆም የሚችል እንዴት ነው? ምንድናቸው የተማርናቸው? በዚህ በኩል ምን ትላለህ? ከባድ።
እሺ አመሰግናለሁ በድጋሚ አቤል። አሁን የጠየቀኝን ነገር አድሬስ ከማድረግ በፊት መለስ ብዬ ሔርሜላ ያለችው ላይ ትንሽ ልጨምር። ያለችው ላይ ብቻ ሳይሆን የሔርሜላንም የእናቷንም በታሪክ ሲወሳ የሚኖር ሮል ካሁኑ መተንበይ ይፈልጋለሁ ማለት ይችላለሁ። ግን ከዛ በፊት TPLFን እኔ የማይበት መነጽር ወይም አስተያየት ምንድነው? እንደ መጥፎ አምልኮ በዚህ ሀገር ካልት እንደሚባል አንድን ማህበረሰብ ሌላ ነገር እንዳይሰማ እንዳያውቅ አይምሮውን አፍነህ ጨፍነህ ይዘህ አንድ ነገር ብቻ ተሰብከውና ከዛ ውጭ እንዳያስብ ተሰብከውና ከዛ ራሽናል የሆነ አስተሳሰብ እንዳይኖረው ታደርግና ለፈለግከው ዓላማ እንዲሞት ራሱን እንዲሰዋ ማለት ይችላል። TPLF የመጀመሪያው አይደለም። ከዚህ በፊት ናዚ ጀርመኒ አይነት እንትኖች ብዙ ታሪክ እንትኖች አሉ፣ ምሳሌዎች አሉ። አንፎርቹኔትሊ የትግራይ ህዝብ TPLF በሚባል እንደዚህ መጥፎ አምልኮ ተይዞ ለዘመናት ህይወቱን ኑሮውን ሁሉንም ነገር የገበረ ህዝብ ተገቢ ላልሆነ ዓላማ ማለት ነው። ታዲያ እንደዚህ አይነት መጥፎ አምልኮ ለማሸነፍ ወይም ለማስቆም ከዛ ህብረተሰብ የሚወጡ ያንን ነገር ፈርስት ሃንድ ያዩ ሰዎች ምስክርነት ትልቅ ሮል አለው። ሔርሜላና እናቷ አሁን ሊሆን ይችላል፣ ግን ከዛ በፊት የነበሩ በርካታ ነበሩ። ድምጻቸው በበቂ ደረጃ ሳይሰማ ስለኖረ ነው እንጂ አሁን የግፉን ብዛት ከልክ አልፎ እንደነ ሔርሜላና እናቷ አይነት ሰዎች ኢነፍ ኢዝ ኢነፍ ብለው ወጥተው በዓለም አቀፍ ደረጃ በኢትዮጵያም ህዝብ ለትግራይ ህዝብ በመላው ዓለምን እውነታውን መናገር መጀመር የትግራይን ህዝብ ሰቆቃ እንዲያበቃ በትልቅ አስተዋጽኦ ይኖረዋል ብዬ አምናለሁ። ሶ ይሄንን ሜንሽን ማድረግ ፈልጌ ነው። ለጠየቀኝ ጥያቄ ሰፊ ነው፣ ብዙ ዲስከሽን የሚያስከትል ግን በአብዛኛው እስማማለሁ አይደል። የዛሬ ዓመትም ይሁን ከዛ በፊት የነበረው እንቅስቃሴ ሌቨል የህዝቡ ትብብር ታይቶ የሚታወቅ አልነበረም ከዚህ በፊት። ምናልባት 2005 የ97 ምርጫ ጊዜ የነበረ ከዛ ጋር ሊወዳደር ይችላል እንጂ ከዛ በኋላ የዛ አይነት ትብብር አይቻለው ነበር። ሆኖም ግን ሁሉም ስህተት ይሰራል ኢንክሉዲንግ ፕራይም ሚኒስተር in my opinion ሁሉም ብለንደር ያደርጋል። ያንዱ ብለንደር ከሌላው ሊበልጥ ይችል ይሆናል። ሲቹዌሽኖችም ዲክቴት ያደርጉታል ነገሩ። ለምሳሌ የኖሞር ሙቭመንትን ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትሩ አቀስቅሶት ብለው የተናገሩት ከአሜሪካ በኩል ቅድም እንዳልኩት የኛን እንቅስቃሴ አይተው እንደ ሶማሌ ከዚህ ከአሜሪካ እየተመለመሉ ሄደው ለኢትዮጵያ የሚዋጉ እንትኖች ሊኖሩ ነው ወይ እንደዛ አይነት ኮሚኒቲ ዲቨሎፕመንት ሊያደርግ ነው ወይ በሚል ፍራቻ ተነስተው አንቲ አሜሪካን ሴንቲሜንት ይዟል ይሄን እንቅስቃሴ ብለው እንደ አንድ ጥያቄ ለጠቅላይ ሚኒስትሩ ያቀርቡ ነበር። የዲያስፖራ ኮሚኒቲዎቻችሁ በጣም ቫዮለንት ሆነዋል፣ ቮካል ሆነዋል፣ ሊትል ቢት ኤክስትሪሚስት ፖዚሽን እየያዙ ነው ምናምንና ይባካችሁ ምንድነው መከሯቸው ወይ ማቀስቀሱ እንዲያቀሰቁት ናቸው ምናምን ተብሎ በሚጠየቅበት ጊዜ ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትሩ የመሰላቸውን ነው ያንን የተናገሩት። ግን ያ ምን ያህል እንደጎዳን እኛ ነው የምናውቀው። የኢትዮጵያን ኮዝ ምን ያህል እንደጎዳን አዲስ አበባ ሊደረግ የነበረው ኖ ሞር ራዲ ራሱ ባለመደረጉ ከዛም ቀደም ብሎ ደግሞ የቲፒኤልኤፍ መስራች የአይዲዮሎጂ አባት ለዚህ ሁሉ መከራ፣ ለዚህ ሁሉ ስቃይ፣ ለዚህ ሁሉ ሞት ምክንያት የሆኑትን ቀንደኛ መሪዎችና ተወስባት ነጋን ጨምሮ ኦል ኦፍ ሰደን በምህረት መልክ መፍታቱም አይ ካን አንደርስታንድ ምንድነው የሰብአዊነት እንትን መንግስት ሊኖረው ይገባል። ግን ክሳቸው ሳይቋረጥ የሕክምናም ይሁን ሌላ ሰፖርት የሚያገኙበት ከእስር ቤት ወጥተው ሌላ ቦታ ላይ ተቀምጠው የሚያገኙበት አይነት መንገድ አሬንጅ ማድረግ ሲቻል ኦል ኦፍ ሰደን በምህረት ተብሎ ሲለቀቅ ያ ሁሉ ህዝብ ለዘመናት የተሰቃየበትን እንትን ያለበትን ኮዝ ነው የጎዳው። ሶ ይሄንን እነዚህ ነው እንደ ብለንደር እያልኩ መቆጣቸው ሁላችንም ነው ብለንደር ያደረግነው። ከዛ በኋላ ደግሞ በኮሚኒቲው መካከል ደግሞ የተለያዩ ምክንያቶች የአቋም ልዩነት መፈጠር ጀመረ። በአማራ ብሔርተኝነት ቨርሰስ ኢትዮጵያዊነት ወዘር ቲፒኤልኤፍ አክቹዋሊ ዋና ጠላታችን ነው ወይስ ብልጽግና ነው ወይ ምናምን እንደዚህ የሚሉ ኮንስፓይሬሲ እና በጣም ኦቨር ኤክስቴንድድ የሆኑ ቲዮሪዎች በህብረተሰቡ ዘንድ ክፍፍል አመጡና ያም ተጨማምሮ ነው ሊቀንስ ሊቀዘቅዝ የቻለው። ሆኖም ግን ፕራዮሪቲስ የሚባሉ የትኛው ነው የሚቀድመው? መቼም ሁሉንም ችግር በአንድ ጊዜ ዲል አናደርግም። የሚቀድመውን የሚብስብንን እያየን ከተነጋገርን በሁሉ ነገር ላይ ባንስማማ በአብዛኛው ዋና ጉዳዮች ለመስማማት እንችላለን። በእኔ አስተሳሰብ ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ያለው ችግር አሁን ኮንፍሊክት የሚባል የስበስ ጦርነት ወይም ምናምን ብትለው የዛ ሁሉ ሩት ኮዙ ቲፒኤልኤፍ ያመጣው የትራይባሊስቲክ የሆነ ሲስተም ኦፍ ገቨርናንስ ነው። እንደኔ ያንን አልቲሜትሊ አድሬስ ሳናደርግ ኢትዮጵያ ሰላም ትሆናለች ብዬ አላስብም። ቲፒኤልኤፍን ዲሳርም ብናደርግ ትግራይን ለጊዜው ማዕከላዊ መንግስት ቢቆጣጠር ምን ቢል ኔቸር ኦፍ ሲስተም እርስ በርስ በሰላም በፍቅር እና ሁላችንም እኩል መብት አገሪቷ ላይ ኖሮ እንደ ልባችን የምንንቀሳቀስበት ሲስተም ካልመጣ በስተቀር የቋንቋን ልዩነት እንደ መጣያ የመሬት የኢትዮጵያን መሬት ክልሉ የማይታወቅ ቦርደሩ የማይታወቅ ለእንስሳ እንኳን የማይገባ አይነት አጥር ሰርተን ይሄ መሬት የኔ ነው ይሄኛው ያንተ ነው እዚች ቦታ ላይ ነው ያንተ መኖር የምትችለው እዚህኛው ላይ መምጣት አትችልም በሚል አይነት ስርዓት ልንኖር አንችልም ሶ ያንን አልቲሜትሊ እሱ ድረስ መሄድ ይኖርብናል ለጊዜው ግን የሚብሰው ይሄንን ህዝባችንን በጦርነት ምክንያት በተለይ የትግራይን ህዝብ ዛው ልክ ደግሞ ዛና አካባቢ ያለ የአማራ ተወላጅ አፋር ተወላጅ ኑሮውን ሲኦል ያደረገበትን ቡድን በህግ ጥላ ስር እርምጃ ወስዶ በቁጥጥር ስር ማድረግና ያንን ነገር ማስቆም ኢምፖርታንት ነው ሶ ለዚህ ሁላችንም ልንተባበር ይገባል ከዛ በኋላ የምናነሳቸው ብዙ ጥያቄዎች ይኖራሉ ማስተካከል ያለባቸው ብዙ ነገሮች ይኖራሉ ግን እዚህኛው ላይ ፎከስ አድርገን ዩኒቲያችንን ይሄ ደግሞ ሔርሜላም ቅድም ሜንሽን እንዳደረገችው ለኢትዮጵያ ብቻ አይደለም ለኤርትራም ብቻ አይደለም ኢትዮጵያና ኤርትራ ህዝብ ጂኦግራፊም አንድ ላይ የኖረ ነው ወደፊትም ፌቱ አንድ ላይ ነው ምንም ጥያቄ የለውም ተስማምተን የጋራ ጥቅማችንን አይተን ተባብረን መኖር ግዴታችን ነው ምርጫ አይደለም ግን ከዛም ያልፍ ሪጅኑን በሙሉ አፍሪካን ጨምሮ ዲስታብላይዝ የሚያደርግ ነገር ነው ስለዚህ ይሄንን ማስተካከል ወደ ስርዓት ለማምጣት የሚደረገው ነገር ላይ እያንዳንዱ ኢትዮጵያዊ እያንዳንዱ ኤርትራዊ እያንዳንዱ ሶማሌ ጅቡቲን በለውዝ አካባቢ ያለው በሙሉ without any second thought መተባበር ያስፈልጋል ለቲፒኤልኤፍ ደግሞ ትልቁ ኃይል የሆናቸው አንደኛው ትልቁ አጋዥ የሆናቸው የአሜሪካ ውሽዋሽ የሆነ አቋም ሌላው ቢቀር ምናልባት መሳሪያ አስገብተው ሰጥተው አርም ላይ ያረጋቸው ይችላል እንደ የድሮ ማረጋቸውን አውቃለሁ እኔ ፐርሰናሊ አውቃለሁ እና ጌል ስሚዝ እና ሱዛን ራይስ በካርተር አሳይን በተደረጉበት ጊዜ በሁሉ ነገር ረድተዋቸው ነው ደርግን መንግስት ለመጣል ያስደረገው አሁን እንደዛ እያደረጉ ነው ባንል እንኳን እንደ ሀያል ሀገርነት የሚሰጡት አስተያየት ሁሉ ወይት አለውኛል ሶ ያንን ትልቁን እዛ ምድር ላይ ያለውን ጉዳይ ኢትዮጵያ መከላከያ ኃይል የኤርትራ መከላከያ ኃይል ሌሎችም ጥምር ኃይሎች በሙሉ ህይወታቸውን እየከፈሉ ምንም ሳይሳሱ ቀን ከሌት ሰሞኑን እንደምናየው ብዙ ድሎችና ውጤቶችን እያመጡ ነው እኛ ደግሞ ያንን ጥረት እዚህ አሜሪካ የምንኖር ኢትዮጵያዊ ኤርትራኖች የአሜሪካን አቋም በማስቀየር ማገዝ እንችላለን ለዚህ ወደ ኋላ የምንለው ትብብር መኖር የለበትም ወደ ኋላ የምንለው ምንሳሳው ጊዜና ገንዘብ መኖር የለበትም እንደኔ ወደፊት ሔርሜላ እንዳለችው ያ ህዝብ ሰላም አግኝቶ የተሻለ ኑሮ የተሻለ የሆነ ስርዓት ሲያገኝ ይሄ ሁሉ ልፋታችን ወደፊት የሚተረፍ ዋጋ የሚያገኝ ነገር ነውና ለአሁኑ አደራም ብለው እዚህ በዲኤምቪ አካባቢ ያላችሁ ከዲኤምቪም ውጭ ደግሞ አይኖ ከኒውዮርክ ከአትላንታ ከተለያዩ ቦታዎች ሰዎች እንደሚመጡ መልእክት እየላኩልን ነው ይሄን ትብብራችን ይሄ ለአንድ ጥያቄ ኢምፖርታንት ለሆነ ጥያቄ አንድ ላይ መቆማችን ተጠናክሮ መቀጠል አለበት ይሄንን ነው እንግዲህ የሚለው
በጣም አመሰግናለሁ ከባዱ ሔርሜላ because very important this very point that I raised with ከባዱ I want to rephrase it for you so you address it too because you are an authoritative leader on No More movement along with Nabiyu Esmon and others that have helped you organize this now I have seen the curve that this movement has taken from the time you guys declared it and then until that movement that we had, that is a 39 city rally that we successfully organized here in this, I have been participating. After that, of course, we learned about the call, the national call. We call it Ethiopian call. That the Ethiopian people, we thought, called us on this very unique trip that million Ethiopians were invited to come to Ethiopia for different reasons. Economic, it could be the psychological, the emotional, the spiritual benefit of it that was untold. And I really enjoyed that call for what comes, because it was a time to galvanize force and show what Ethiopians can do. The rally, the 31 city rally, was a fourth day tour. And we have accomplished, I think, in raising awareness across the globe, in showing what Ethiopians can do. And then when the Prime Minister made that call, all of us said, you know what? There is nothing that I cannot do for Ethiopia. If it means dropping my work and losing it for that matter, I know many people who did on that ground. We left to Ethiopia. And I'll tell you, just before we left here, we organized, I think, about 20-something non-profit organizations who stand for Ethiopia coming together, creating a coalition, sort of for building an alliance and supporting this effort and going forward to work for Ethiopia. That's what we have done, and have been the PR and media lead on that. The first thing I heard when I first landed in Ethiopia was that Tsewa'e was released from jail. And my gut feeling at that time was, you know what, if I can get the next flight back, I would go. I was so disappointed, right? But then again, you realize, and this is about your country, not about political decisions. And we continued what we went there to do. But as I have explained it with Kabadu, the repercussion of political decisions and some of the things that have been taken, including kind of, you know what, take down the tone on no more, and all those kind of things have been, it has cost us a lot, especially when it comes to organizing the diaspora for Ethiopia's sake. As you can see, the movement has been kind of mellow, if I can say. It's just was very hard to bring people's motivation to that level, even when they are very committed for their country. And nobody would question the commitment of any Ethiopian here. They will do anything for their country, but because they couldn't place these erratic kind of decisions and statements from political leaders, really, they didn't know what to make of it, and most of them choose not to even go to these rallies, and that's what you see recently. The kind of movement and motion that you see among people for this kind of things is now, it is very, at its lowest point it has been, at least back in February when we were going out for HR 6600. As a leader of this movement, as someone who have paid huge price to bring this, and I have said it, nobody is going to take away point from what you have achieved in that regard, because not you're making that the movement is not going as much. But what did you feel at the time? What do you think is the motivation, even those wrong decisions? Why did the Ethiopian government, even the kind of decisions made, what benefit did it bring for Ethiopia, even in terms of diplomacy? It could be because sometimes when you negotiate and when you come around the table to ask something, and you also want to get something, right? When the American government requires or kind of asks the Ethiopian government to help them tone down, for example, the no more movement. If I were the political leaders of Ethiopia, I would ask myself, you know what, take TPLF off the screen. You know, this organization is the reason why these people are angry. Disarm TPLF. Get it out of the picture. Don't support it, because it has lost its taste. It is a reason for the whole region to be in this kind of problem now. More than 3-4 million people, you know, in refugee camps or not in their good life. So why didn't the Ethiopian government ask this kind of questions and just offer what was asked for them? I mean, do what they did for no more movement. What do you think?
You know, some of it is just theory. I don't know exactly why the Prime Minister, that government, chose to release those 7 folks, including Sabhat Nagga, Jawar Mohammed, Iskandar Nagga, and some of the people that were arrested with them. I'm not sure. I can only speculate. I know it was around Ganna. I know it was announced around Ganna, but the decision, from what I understand, had already been made and they'd already been released. And I had, like you, Abel, similar feelings when I first heard about it. I felt like, wait, what's happening? And I, you know, kind of panicked. And someone that I spoke with said, pack your stuff and go. And then I had to stop myself and say, wait, hold on. Let me talk to some people. Let me ask some questions. What is this about? let me not, panic. And once I talked to more and more people within government and others that I work with, I calmed down, didn't leave the country. I did hear some people literally turned around at the airport. And at first I thought it was an exaggeration, but I'd actually met somebody whose sister did exactly just that, which is just unfortunate. I mean, she didn't need to leave. Ultimately, things didn't change, but I understand the panic initially. So, and then there was what the prime minister said about toning down no more. All those things to me is, I just look at it like this. The prime minister has a really difficult job. I don't know what kind of pressure he is facing, but what came out of these decisions? That's all I can look at. Okay, these 7 people were released. Did anybody is there more violence because of it? Are they implicated in more violence? If so, then we can talk about that. But I'm not sure that that is the case, at least not anything, really major, although they might be involved in some issues. And then same with what the prime minister said. Okay, so that's what he told us, but we're still going to do what we're going to do because we believe in the movement. So, I'm not mad at him for saying that. Maybe he had pressure to say that. But again, it always goes back to what can we do? What's within our control? And I think the really important thing in this movement and probably in anything in life is resilience. I think the word is Sanat. I didn't like.
Yes.
Yeah, Sanat. So I think Sanat is very important in everything. So, you can be upset for a day, but you got to come back and try to do something the next day, or take a break for a week, but try to, still do something the following week. This is a marathon. It's not, we didn't arrive anywhere. We're not going to arrive somewhere and just get comfortable. I mean, you don't wake up and take a shower one day and say, I'm good, I'm showered for life. That's just not how it works. Every day you got to get up and you got to do the same things. You got to eat, you got to sleep, you got to, do it's over and over and over again, because you're working towards something. And I think that's how we have to look at this movement. I do feel people's, concern and pain, about the releases, about, what the Prime Minister said after inviting us all back home. I understand why that would be offensive. I understand why people would be particularly hurt by certain attacks on the ground that target specifically, it seems, ethnic Amharas. I understand that. But, if you are advocating for them, you have to stay with the people that are in this movement with you. Maybe some of us don't understand it the way that you understand it now, but if you don't work on explaining it, then we're never going to understand it. I mean, who would have thought? Maybe some people would have thought, but a lot of people probably didn't think that I was taking in new information and my mind was changing along the way and I had questions. A lot of people didn't see that, but I did. That was happening all along. It didn't just happen the first day that I spoke up. And so I think Kabadu also said it well. The thing with movement work is you don't know things are changing until you see a very obvious sign, but you have to be hopeful that people are learning and growing and they are changing and things are changing. And I know this government probably has so much corruption issues because I hear about it. I hear that it's there's a lot of corruption on an individual level. And so, but that will change with time. It won't change because we give up on it, because we decide not to work with our comrades. So it's when we go out on Sunday and rally together as Ethiopians, Eritreans, Africans, Americans, we're not saying I agree with everything the person next to me thinks. That's not what we're saying. We're saying we're on the same path. Our destinies are linked, and there are some values that we share, and we're going to build on that. Everything about a movement is building. So there's just building blocks you have to take. You don't just, it doesn't happen at once. The house doesn't come up at once. So, you have to talk to people. I spend time talking to people, listening to people, understanding, reflecting on, what I've said and what I've done and what I know. And so it's just, it's a marathon. So we have to have the resilience. So, this Sunday, we're hoping to have a good turnout. And once we do, it's not a destination. It's something, we're going to have a good time. There's always good energy, a lot of amazing people that join us, people that have been doing this for a very long time. It's always very humbling to me to see folks that have been doing this for a long time at these rallies. And once we get there, we'll say what we have to say. We've got an organized program and speeches and chants, and hopefully we'll get a good turnout. We can celebrate that, and then we can talk about, all right, what's next? Like, it's always going to be about like what's next. So I hope people can maintain that frame of mind moving forward. Like, this is a really long game, but there's a lot of good people involved, and we just have to have hope that things will shift. And people are capable of changing and growing. And if each person focuses on that, then collectively we will have a better country and a better society a decade down the line.
Thank you, ሔርሜላ. I think as a matter of follow-up, and also because I really like the freedom in your mind to speak what you know and what you believe in. As you can tell, the whole tragedy that we are passing through, that the Ethiopian people are suffering, is due to a misaligned principle about being human. The guiding principles for Ethiopians in the last 50 years has been all about who you are as an ethnic person instead of as a universal global human being. That makes you and me live in this country with as the next person next door with no problem. Of course, it has its own history, but our principles, the moral principles of the nation, has been misaligned and has been distorted. And this is because of the kind of policies that the government, the TPLF, has promoted in the last 50 years from its date of inception. Of course, the nationalities and the state principle originally developed by Stalin, and then has been kind of framed for Ethiopia by an intellectual called Waleli Mekonnen. I don't know if you know his name. And then, of course, that was brought into reality when TPLF started a new government in 1991 with these 9 regions, and everybody to recognize and be aware at all times where he's coming from, as Amhara, Tigray, Gurage, you name it. Now, time has proven that this is a failed system, a very tragic system that has costed millions in our country. And the problems that we are going through right now is pretty much because of this. The constitution is something framed by Prime Minister Meles Zenawi with his leadership, and of course TPLF, and of course the cronies, the satellite organizations that have come around TPLF. The 27 years of rule of TPLF has proved that this is a doomed system from the get-go, and it is a very vindictive system that attacks some portion of the people as enemy to the others, and the same divisive constitution is still in place. And people like you who are working for the freedom, for the peace, for the progress of Ethiopia still have this daunting task to understand how this country can ever come to peace and development, even when, as we speak, knowing what PLF has instituted is the cause of all this, still keep practicing the same thing. We don't see any constitutional change or any kind of major radical measures to dissuade people from thinking along this line. The world is moving fast, as you have seen it, in economically, socially, politically, in many ways. But you don't find a country like Ethiopia where ethnicity has been bragged about the way it is and has been a working principle for the government. So in this kind of contradictory situation, on one hand, we have these real problems. We don't have to learn from anybody, from our own history, what the people are suffering in Afar, Amhara, Tigray, and in Benishangul, you name it. Because of ethnicity, still we are suffering. Our country cannot be stable. On the other hand, you still see a government that is framing itself or still following the same principle TPLF followed. We got to have a hard talk on this as citizens and with our government, the government of Ethiopia, and among us, to really come to reality and to true understanding of our problems. We don't see those kind of initiatives, or if you see, it's not from the heart. Because you see the Ethiopian government has organized a peace commission when Prime Minister Abiy came first. And the movement along those lines didn't still at least bring any fruit that could help the country move in any direction. We're a war country as we speak. So we got to speak hard on this. What do you think should we do in this regard? Because very important. And two, this is my first question. The second question that also I want to, because of the ethnicity thinking, our mind has been brainwashed to think along that line. It's not easy now to get off these ideas and all of a sudden embrace something, because as you know, ideology has its own deep root that go into your head and your mind and make you commit the way. We see people committed to even kill, willing to kill others. Okay, so one thing that, as I have initially said, is that what I like about your history is there was a time when this misinformation, disinformation of the PLF was at one point made you sort of a prisoner for a while. But then you said, wait a minute, it's not what should be the case. From the genocide narrative about the guys that they wrote to other things that you see, you realize that there is something that's not working right. Of course, you liberated yourself first, and now you become a rotting light for all of us to lead this movement to come to truth and to live like a human being. What are the key things that the Ethiopian people should know to go along the line? It's not just for Tigrayan people, it's for Amharas themselves, for Oromos themselves, and for others who are suffering from this narrow mindset. What should we do?
Well, first I'll say the Constitution and the legalities of it, I think, are, for me, very complicated, and I'm still learning about it. But as far as what the people can do to combat, ethnic issues, to me, logic is the best antidote to tribalism. Meaning, if you look at all of us, can you really tell that much of a difference based on ethnicities? No, you can't. We bleed the same. There's no real pattern among one ethnicity versus the other, except just you've got different language, maybe different dances associated with it. But when you look at, when you just look at it logically, there's nothing that different about us, except on an individual basis. You may like what one person stands for, or what they don't stand for. So, I always say when it comes to the TPLFites or folks that have really gone down this deeply tribal route, there's inconsistencies. It's a very inconsistent ideology. You can say all Tigrayans are like this or all Amharas like this, and it's just not true. That breaks down along so many lines. And you live in Ethiopia, and you live in the United States, and you're really going down this ethnic, division route when your neighbor is from another country, or the neighbor next to you is white, and the other one is African American, and there's we have so much diversity here. So how can you have so much diversity here and then want to live in a very narrow ethnic based world like a lot of the TPLF supporters in the diaspora live? So just be logical and not emotional. Tribalism feeds on emotions, and those emotions blur people from the data. I mean, if people within the Tigray activist camp that sometimes looks like pro TPLF that I was working with, if they were just open to logic, they would not be able to stay there. You have to ignore your own logic and put aside certain parts of your brain and just go on emotions. Maybe you don't want to leave that community you're with. Maybe you're afraid of the backlash. Maybe you can't handle it, and that's fine, but that's an emotional decision. It's not because there are people within that activism that would tell me, I don't think this is right. Why are they doing this? Why are they saying this about the rest of Ethiopia? It's people that one parent's from an Amhara region, the other parent's from a Tigray region, but they're stuck in this sort of pro-TPLF Tigray camp because for different reasons. So let's just be logical. If you're logical, you won't be able to be tribal. I don't know what it's like for the people on the ground in Ethiopia, and I really can't speak for them because I don't know what kind of environment that they're dealing with. But as far as the diaspora goes, if we just take a moment, take a breather, we all can be emotional sometimes, but once you take a breather, you'll realize that your tribal thoughts, if you have any, are illogical. I mean, that's what I was able to do. It's not that I have I don't think I have a different kind of brain necessarily than everybody else. It's just that I like logic. I don't want to be in a place where things are very inconsistent, and we should all aim for that because it's actually very freeing. Once you start ignoring certain elements because you want to believe in one thing, then you end up trapping yourself in something that's not even real. So I don't even think that we're as tribalist as the West likes to try to tell us. I really don't. I don't see that in my friends. I don't see that in the people around me. do elements of it come up? Yeah, sure. But in general, I don't think we're that deeply divided. I think that conversation may have come in the last 4 or 2 years. You know, there might be opinions that people had of TPLF supporters that might have been mostly from Tigray, but I don't even think that was considered tribalism. I just think that's people taking the data in, that all these people from Tigray are not speaking up about TPLF, whether it's because they're ignorant or because they actually support them. So is that tribalism, or is that a human being a human taking in the data around them? And so what the TPLF tried to do with that is, oh, everybody's against ethnic Tigrayans. No, they're not. There's context that is important to talk about that will then make you realize that's not what it's about. I mean, it's so that's to me, that's what it is. In the diaspora, we just have to lean into logic and stop just kind of like leaning on these really emotional tribal sentiments, because it doesn't even help people. I mean, people that say they're, you know, worried about certain ethnicities that are being targeted on the ground, and then they turn around and they want to sanction the country, that's not logical. That's going to hurt the very people that you're speaking for. So again, logic will always break through any tribalism.
Thank you very much. It's always great to listen to your arguments, and I'm sure anyone who listens to this, you can understand why, after all, ሔርሜላ, even if the misinformation was there, she break away from that and come and stand for truth, and why? That's why her story and what she's doing is lightening up for all of us and becoming really a real model for what we have to do. Kabado, I'm winding up our discussion. በጠቅላላው እሁድ ባሰብነው ስብሰባ በታሰበው ስብሰባ ውስጥ ሴፕቴምበር 18 ኖርማሊ የሚደረጉ ነገሮች አሉ። ሰዎች ይመጣሉ፣ ኦፍ ኮርስ ድምጽ እናሰማለን። ግን ምንድነው ዓላማው? ሊገኝ የታሰበው ዓላማ ምንድነው? ከዚህ የሚገኘው ውጤት ምንድነው? ማን ነው የሚሰማን? ለምንድነው የሚሰሙን? ምን አይነት ውጤት እንጠብቃለን? ከዚህ የምንጠብቀው ምንድነው? በዚህ በኩል
እሺ አቤል፣ ታንክ ዩ በድጋሚ። በመጀመሪያ ሔርሜላን ምንም እንኳን እዚህ ኢንተርቪው ውስጥ አብሬ ብኖርም የምትናገረውን በመስማት መደመሜን፣ በሌላ በኩል ደግሞ ደስተኛ መሆኔን መግለጽ እፈልጋለሁ። ምክንያቱም መጀመሪያ ፕሮግራሙ ሲጀምር እንደተናገርኩት የትግል ወይም ኢፈርት ኮንቲኒየስ ነው። እሷን በትክክል ነው ያስቀመጠችው። ዴይ ኢን ዴይ አውት ኤቭሪ ዴይ የሚደረግ ነገር ነው። ኢምፕሩቭመንት በዓለም ላይ ሲቹዌሽኖች ተስተካክለው ማንም ሰብአዊ ፍጡር ያላግባብ የሚሰቃይበት አይነት ስርዓት እንዳይኖር ለማድረግ አይ ቲንክ በተፈጥሮ የተፈጠርንበት የዚህ ምድር ፐርፐዛችን ነው ብዬ አምናለሁ። ለዛ ኮንትሪቢዩት ማድረግ እና ኤቭሪ ዴይ የምናደርገው ነገር ነው፣ ኮንቲኒየስ ነገር ነው። ሶ ከዛ አኳያ እንደ ሔርሜላ አይነት ወጣት በተለይ ደግሞ ነገሩን በትክክል ተረድቶ በአዲስ መልክ ተሻለ መልክ የሚያካሂዱን የሚቀበሉ አክቲቪስቶች መኖራቸውን በማየት በመገንዘቤ እና ምስክር በመሆኔ በጣም በግሌ ደስተኛ መሆኔን ለመግለጽ ፈልጋለሁ። እንደውም በአደባባይ ሚዲያ ስም ሔርሜላ ተገቢ ቦታሽ ዋሽንግተን ዲሲ ነው፣ የአሜሪካ መንግስት መቀመጫ የሆነው የኢትዮጵያ የሚሆን የኤርትራ ኮሚኒቲ በብዛት የሚኖርበት ናቹራል ኮልሽ ዋሽንግተን ዲሲ አካባቢ ሆነ ይሄንን ጥረት በቀጣይነት በመሪነት ማካሄድ ነው ያንቺ ኮልና ይሄንን ፕሮሚስ እንድትገባ መጠየቅ ፈልጋለሁ። ከዛ አልፎ ግን አንድ ነገር ያነሳችሁት ላይ እሷም በጥሩ ሁኔታ የገለጸችው ላይ ኮሜንት ማድረግ ፈልጋለሁ። ስለ ኤትኒክ አይዲዮሎጂ ወይም ትራይባሊዝም እኔ እውነት ለመናገር የምደግፈው የምቃወመው መንግስት ወይም ግሩፕ የለኝም። የምቃወመው እንዲቀየር የምፈልገው ስርዓት ሲስተም ሜካኒዝም ነው መቀየር ያለበት። አንዳንድ ጊዜ ሰዎች ማን ነው እንደዚህ የሚያጋድለን፣ ማን ነው ሁሉ ግፍ የሚሰራብን ብለው ሲጠይቁ የምሰጠው መልስ ነው that's a wrong question. what የሚለውን ነው መጠየቅ ያለብን። ምንድን ነው እንደዚህ የሚያደርገን? ለዚህ ሁሉ መከራ የሚዳርገን ምንድን ነው ብለን ከጠየቅን ትክክለኛ ጥያቄ የሆነና ትክክለኛ መልስ እናገኝለታለን። በየጊዜው ግን ኢንዲቪጁዋል ወይም ግሩፕን እንደ ምክንያት አድርገን ከወሰድ ያን ብናጠፋም underlying የሆነውን situation ካላስተካከል ነው there will be another group, there will be another people doing the same thing, and this is what we have seen for the last 50 years. ኢትዮጵያውያኖችን በሰላም በፍቅር በጥሩ ኢኮኖሚክ ዲቨሎፕመንት ከድህነት ወጥተን እፎይ ብለን መኖር እንዳንችል ምክንያት የሆነው ይሄ ሮንግ አቤል ማንተ በትክክል የገለጽከው ሮንግ የሆነ አይዲዮሎጂ ሰለጠን አወቅን ብለን እኛ ከኛ ጊዜ ጄነሬሽን በፊት የጀመረው የኤትኒክ አይዲዮሎጂ ነው ለዚህ ሁሉ ያበቃን ብዬ ማስበው። ሶ ታዲያ ይሄንን ካወቅን እንዴት ነው ይሄ የሚስተካከለው የሚለው ላይ ነው ከሌሎች ትንሽ ለየት ነው። አሁን ብዙ ጊዜ ዲስከሽን ላይ ለምንድነው አብይ ወይም ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትሩ ወይም ብልጽግና ይሄንን የማያደርገው እነሱም ከዚህ አይለዩም የሚል ኮሜንቶች ሰማለሁ። ተገቢ ናቸው፣ ግን ትክክለኛው ምክንያት ሩት ኮዙን የተመለከቱ አይደለም ወይም እንዴት መቀየር እንዳለበት የተመለከቱ አይደለም። It's not up to Abiy, it's not up to ብልጽግና to do it. It may not be even their interest. Why should I care? የኔ የግል ከኔ ጋር የሚስማሙ ሰዎች የዚህን ስርዓት የዚህን አይዲዮሎጂ ትክክል አለመሆን የተገነዘቡና እንዲቀየር የሚፈልጉ ሰዎች ተባብረን የራሳችንን ሙቭመንት እና የራሳችንን ግፊት ነው ማሳደግ ያለብን። የዛን ጊዜ ፕራይም ሚኒስትር አብይም ይሁን ብልጽግናም ይሁን ናሽናል ዲያሎግ ምንድነው ኮሚሽኑም ይሁን ምንም አይነት እርምጃ መውሰድ የሚችሉ ስልጣን ላይ ያሉ አካላት በቸርነት ሳይሆን በህዝብ ፍላጎት ተመርኩዘው ሌላ አማራጭ ሳይኖራቸው ወደዚህ እንድንሄድና ወደ ሶሉሽን እንድንሄድ ያደርገናል። ሶ ይህንን ሙቭመንት ማካሄድ የኛ ኃላፊነት ነው። ኢትዮጵያን ህዝብ ከብሔር ፖለቲካ ከብሔር ተኮር አስተዳደር ወጥቶ ወደ ሞደርን ሲቪላይዝድ የሆነ ሔርሜላ ጥሩ አድርጋ ገልጸዋለች። እዚህ ሀገር ስንኖር እኛ ዋይት ስቴት፣ ብላክ ስቴት፣ ሂስፓኒክ ስቴት የሚል የለም። ነገ ጠዋት ከተመቸኝ እኔ ተነስቼ ቴክሳስ ሙቭ አደርጋለሁ፣ ማንም የሚጠይቀኝ የለም። የዛ አይነት የነበረ ነው ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ደግሞ አዲስ አይደለም። የትግራይ ተወላጆች በኔ እድሜ እንኳን ከዳር እስከ ዳር የተለያየ አይነት ሙያ ይዘው የጋራዥም ቢባል የሌላም ቢሆን እንደልባቸው ምንም ሳይፈሩ እናንተ ሳይሉ ኑሯቸውን ንግዳቸውን የሚያካሂዱበት አማራውም እንደዚሁ ነበር። ያንን ያጣ ነው እና እንደ አዲስ አይደለም እናመጣው መልሰን ለማምጣት ነው ሞከራ ያለብን። ግን ያንን ማድረግ የኛ እዚህ ጥሩ ምሳሌ የሚሰጠው አናሎጂ የሚሰጠው ሲቪል ራይት ሙቭመንት ሲካሄድ መንግስት ለመገልበጥ አይደለም ወይም ነጮቹ ስለጨቆኑን ይጥፉ አይደለም፣ ግን ያለው ኢንጀስቲስ ይስተካከል በሚል የተካሄደ ሙቭመንት ነው። just like that we have to make it our movement. የኤትኒክ አይዲዮሎጂ በተለይ ደግሞ በኮንስቲቱሽን ኢንስቲቱሽናላይዝ ተደርጎ ሪጅኑም የጥፋት ዋና ምክንያት የሆነው ይሄ የታጠቀው ኃይልም በእንደዛ የተደራጅቶ አገር በሰላም ተዋጽልም እና ይሄንን እኛ በቀጣይነት ማካሄድ የሚገባን ሙቭመንት ነው። በመጨረሻ ግን እንደው አጌን ኮሚኒቲውን ማሳሰብ መማፀን የምፈልገው የኢትዮጵያ ህዝብ ከዚህ መጥፎ አምልኮ ከሚከተልና ይሄ ሁሉ መከራ ካስከተለብን ከቲፒኤልኤፍ ነፃ ለማውጣት በየቀኑ ህይወታቸውን የሚሰጡ ሳይሰስቱ ማለት ነው እህትና ወንድሞቻችን አሉ። እነሱ የሚያደርጉትን ጥረት የነሱን መስዋዕትነት ደረጃ አይተን እኛ እዚህ ሰላም በሆነ ሀገር ውስጥ የምንኖር ሁሉ ነገር በተመቻቸ ነገር ውስጥ የምንኖር ኢትዮጵያዊና ኤርትራኖች ትልቅ ኃላፊነት አለብን። በየቀኑ እየተነሳ ምን ተደረገ ምን ተፈጠረ ዛሬ ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥና ኤርትራ ውስጥ በሚል ብቻ ሳይሆን what can I do ለህሊናችን ሌላው ቢቀር ለህሊናችን ተገቢውን መልስ የሚሰጠን እፎይታ የሚሰጠን ነገር ማድረግ ይገባናል። ስለዚህ በዚህ ባለፈውን በሰኞው ተደረገው ሰልፍ ላይ የወጣችሁትን የተባበራችሁትን በሙሉ እናመሰግናለን። የሁላችንም ጉዳይ ነው። የተዘጋጀው በብዙ ድርጅቶች ትብብር ነው፣ ግለሰቦች ትብብር ነው። ገንዘብ ያላዋጣ ስራ ኮንትሪቢዩት ያላደረገ አልነበረም። አሁንም ያይ ሆነ ነው ያለው። ብዙ ድርጅቶች የተባበሩ ነው። ግን እያንዳንዳችን የኮሚቴ አባል እሁድ ከሰዓት በኋላ ነው። አብዛኛው ሰው ስራ የለውም። ምንድነው እሱ ከቤተክርስቲያን ፕሮግራም በኋላ ነው። ለ2-3 ሰዓት ዋይት ሃውስ ላይ ተገናኝተን ድምጻችንን እናሰማ። እነዚህ ሰዎች ቁጥራችንን ያያሉ፣ ድምጻችንን ይሰማሉ። ምንም ጥያቄ የለውም። እኔና ሔርሜላ ፐርሰናል ዊትነሶች ነን። የምናረጋት እያንዳንዷ እንቅስቃሴ ሰኞ ሰልፍ ስናደርግ እኛ ሰልፍ እያደረግን ስቴት ዲፓርትመንት ውስጥ ስብሰባ ነበር። እዛ ላይ ሜንሽን ተደርጓል እና የሚታይ እንቅስቃሴ ነው። ኢምፓክት አለው። እንመንበት። ይሄንን ቢያንስ ግን ለህሊናችን ዛሬ ለኢትዮጵያም ለኤርትራም ሰላም ስል ወጥቼ ድምጽ አሰምቻለሁ ወይም ደግሞ ወጥቼ ቆም ያለው የተወሰነ ሰዓት ከሚል ራስንም ራሱ ሰላም ለመስጠት አኳያ አደራ ላለው በተቻለ መጠን ሌላውን ልዩነታችን ወደ ጎን አድርገን እዛም ላይ ቁጭ ቆመን ዲስከስ ማድረግ እንችላለን ስለሌላው ልዩነታችን። ግን ይሄንን ከፍተኛ አደራ እንደው አዘጋጆቹ ስም መጠየቅ መለመን ፈልጋለሁ። አቤት ታንኪ ሶ
በጣም አመሰግናለሁ። ከባዱ እንደ ሁሉ ጊዜው የምታደርገው ጥረት ለሀገር ለወገን ለሌላዎች የሚያስተምር አርአያም የሚሆን ነው። ይሄንን እንድትቀጥልልን ያስፈልጋል። እውነት ነው። የምንገኘው እሁድ የምንሰለፈው በተለያየ ቦታ ስለ ሀገራችን የምንጮኸው የማንንም ፍላጎት ለመወከል የኢትዮጵያን ህዝብ አጀንዳ ለማራመድ ነው። እዚህ ውስጥ ስላሉት ሰዎች መናገር እችላለሁ። አላማቸው የኢትዮጵያ ህዝብ ነው። ከዚያ ውጭ ነገር የለም። ተከፍሎት የሚሰራ ወይም ደግሞ የተወሰነ አይዲዮሎጂ ለማራመድ አይደለም። በጠቅላላውኑ ስራችንን ትተን ህይወታችንን በብዙ መንገዱ አፌክት እያደረገ የምንሰራውን የምናደርግበት ምክንያት የኢትዮጵያ ጉዳይ ማንደራደርበት ስለሆነ ኢትዮጵያ ሀቀታችን ስለሆነ ነው። ተቀምጠው ትችት የሚያደርጉ ሰዎች አሉ። ስለነዚህ ሰዎች ትችት የሚጨንቀን አይሆንም። 3 አይነት ሰዎች አሉ ይባላል። የድርጊት ሰዎች አሉ፣ ስለ ድርጊት ሰዎች የሚተነትኑ አሉ። ይሄንንም ደግሞ ሰዎችን ሞራል ምንቁማትን ስሞ ደግሞ ምንም ነገር ስለ ጉዳዩ ግድ የሌላቸው ሰዎች አሉ። ግድ የሌለን ሰዎች ልንሆን አንችልም። ተቀምጠን ስለው ሰዎች ልናወራ አንችልም። በአቅሜ ለኔ ለራስ ምንድነው ማድረግ የሚለው ማድረግ አለብን። ኬነዲ የዚህ ሀገር መሪ 1960 የነበሩት የሚሉት ነገር አለ። እኔ ለሀገሬ ምን አደረግኩላት ብል እንጂ ሀገሬ ለኔ ምን አደረገችልኝ አትበል። what did I do for my country? ይሄ ጥያቄ ነው ሁልጊዜም የታሪካችን መርህ ሊሆን የሚገባው። በዚህ ተነስተን በምናደርገው ነገር ወደ ኋላ አለንም። ስለ ኢትዮጵያ ብለን የሚደረገው እናደርጋለን። እሁድ ተገናኝተን ስለ ኢትዮጵያ እንጮሃለን፣ ስለ ኢትዮጵያ እንጮሃለን፣ ስለ ኢትዮጵያ ህልውና፣ ስለ ኢትዮጵያ ክብር እናገራለን። ሔርሜላ, let me give you this last chance for you to wrap up this conversation as you go along in promoting the September 18th rally, as you have been leading the effort to change the narrative on the Tigray genocide, and then of course lead the effort on no more, on misinformation, disinformation, the war against Ethiopia, the Western propaganda. This is going to remain a trajectory for the years to come on what we have to do and how we should shape ourselves and stand together in promoting the interest of our country. And you will remain the leader for the credentials you have, for the credibility that you have, that you established because of what you have done. And we follow and we look up to you in a way to understand this whole motion, especially as a professional journalist in information management. Okay. You would help us in learning and writing a new narrative for Ethiopia and how we should relate globally with all other countries and live as prosperous country with peace shrining in our country for our people. Now, as you look forward to September 18 and beyond, what are the key factors that Ethiopians should look up to beyond the division, beyond the politics, beyond the tribalism? what are the guiding principles that we should look into, that we should always, you have said it earlier, the logic is an important thing in our brain, but as a people, as a society, as we come together, what are the things that we have to promote and we look up to? Because as I have put it, and well established, you're a leader in the community, in our country and beyond. As an international journalist, you help us canvas the information set out there so that we can pick the right ones and guided by properly informed decisions rather than misinformation. Go ahead.
Well, lucky for us, the journalists are getting lazier, so I don't have to spend as much time debunking their lies. I think we saw some of the recent reporting on the operation in Mekelle, and it's so low level lies that I feel like I don't have to spend as much time on debunking the media outlets, but the movement is really important and it takes a lot of work. And just taking a look at the video that you guys have been playing throughout the show and looking at the crowds, carrying different flags, just the diversity of people in it, the different faces, the ages, the different flags, the signs that they're carrying. I mean, it almost moves me to tears to see the kids coming out all united to say the same thing, to stand up for Ethiopia that had been at that point going under or had been under attack in an insurgent war for a year. I mean, it's just so incredible and moving to see that kind of unity. And I imagine the State Department looked at that and said, uh-oh. And, when you look at that kind of people power, what can't we do? So, I just want us to be able to celebrate our diversity in terms of our, backgrounds, ethnicity, experience, age. It's just a beautiful thing. And I hope we get to see a lot of those faces this weekend. And another thing about, why we do this, I know we talk about it being for the country and for the people on the ground. Yes, that's also true, but it's also for ourselves. It's actually very fulfilling. It gives you a sense of purpose. You can put different amount of hours into it. Not everybody can put in the same amount of hours, but it's incredibly fulfilling. We need everybody, every person. I mean, there's an established group of people here in DC, the DC task force that Kabadu's on, and a lot of other people. Abel, you're here. I mean, as Kabadu said, a lot of things are here, as far as part of his campaign to get me to DC. So it makes sense. There's a lot of people here that have been working on this for a very long time, 25 years. And each person's contribution is so important. And it beyond just kind of the central folks that are doing this all the time, even everybody else, like when I talk to people and ask them, are you coming? And it's like, they're coming and they're bringing a couple of people. Like those 3 people are very important. Like each person can do something. If you just bring a friend, if you bring 2 people, that's a huge deal. If everybody takes on that kind of responsibility, that's it. We got it. And so just know that this is also for us. Like this is also for me. This makes me feel like there's a need here and I can help fill it. And that's a beautiful thing. It makes, it gives you a little something more to live for, So I think that that's something that we should instill in all of us, that, maybe not everybody gets the amount of attention and gets celebrated the way that they should. I think everybody that showed up at those rallies should be celebrated. They all had just a significant part. Each person was a significant part of the rally. It's when people say, oh, why should I go? It's not that important. Other people will go. When everybody starts saying that, then the crowd gets smaller. So if everyone just says, oh, at least I'll go because I can go. That's what I did last Monday. I was like, well, you know what? I'm here. I actually would have left earlier, but I said, no, the rally's there. I'm going to stay. I'm going to go. I didn't know how many people were going to show up. It was like a last minute rally. We hadn't done one in a long time, or I hadn't been a part of one in a long time, but I got there and it was a beautiful thing. There were people that showed up, a significant amount of people that showed up, but regardless of the numbers, I wanted to be there and it felt good to be there and do my part. So that's also something to keep in mind. We're not just doing it for other people. We're also doing it for ourselves. And I promise once you start seeing it as just something that you're committed to as opposed to like a one-time thing, it actually gets more rewarding the more you pass through certain challenges and stick around. So I do hope to see everybody on Sunday, September 18th, 2 p.m. in front of the White House. It's not as cold as it was in November. It's a beautiful time of year in DC. September, a very comfortable temperature. So bring your flags, bring any signs that you had from previous rallies. And we're also going to make a bunch of new signs for this rally as well. So we'll bring those. So yeah, hope to see everybody there.
Thank you so much, ሔርሜላ. It's always refreshing to listen to you. And I think this is what being an Ethiopian is, stand for your country. Kennedy's word, as I mentioned it earlier, is leading for us. We're not going to ask what Ethiopia has done for us. We're going to say, what can I do for Ethiopia? It's a personal call. We have to do this because our country is something that we cannot negotiate about. It is there, and we're going to give it our all. And ሔርሜላ and Kabado, as you can tell, they have invested their time to make sure that this rally is successful. And it's going to be successful. We're going to come along because our agenda is one, Ethiopia. And it is survival, it's sovereignty, it is peace, it is progress, it's primary for us. And we're not going to negotiate with anyone. And TPLF has written a narrative that is now has lost its total credibility, might have used it to confuse the world, not just Ethiopians, the world. But it has lost its edge, it's no longer that valuable, and that we're seeing it. The results slowly but surely. Yeah. We're going to see Ethiopia's peace and progress. We're going to see what I have seen in Addis. I was in Addis two weeks ago, and the kind of life that I have seen there should be there in Mekelle, it should be there in Aksum, it should be there in all cities of Tigray. You know, we are all entitled to that kind of life. Peace is the order of life for a few human beings. That's how God created us. War is not. We have to avoid this division, and that's what we're promoting. We stand for Ethiopia. That's what we're going to do September 18. I'm sure the call from ሔርሜላ and the Kabado must have by now inculcated in your head. We're going to see that. But before I finish this, I'm going to bring Firdu for his last word on this, and he was going to, if you have anything to say for ሔርሜላ and for Kabado, you're quite welcome. But now the forum is for you.
ታንክ ዩ አቤል and ሔርሜላ ከባዱ በጣም ቆንጆ ጊዜ ነበረ። ኮመንቶቹን እየተከታተልኩ ነበር። በጣም ብዙ ሰው ኮመንት እያደረገ ነው። ብዙ ሰው እንደሚገኝም እንግዲህ ቃል ገብቷል ሰልፉ ላይ። ሔርሜላ ላት ሪስፔክት ነው ያለሽ። በጣም ብዙ ሰው አንቺን በማየቱ ተደስቷል። ሂር ግን በአማርኛ ትንሽ ነገር ብትለን እያሉ ነበረ።
You guys always want to hear me tripping over my Amaringa.
That's okay. እሱን እንግዲህ ከባዱ አስተካክሏል። I think ብዙ ሰው ሁሉም ሰው አንደርስታንድ ያደረገው ይመስለኛል, which is good. Nice to see you again. በጣም እናመሰግናለን ካለሽ ጊዜ አጣበሽ ስለተገኘሽና በዚህ መልኩ የእሁዱንም ራሊ እንደዚሁም ደግሞ በኢትዮጵያ ጉዳይ ይሄን የመሰለ ጊዜ ስለሰጣችሁን ሁለታችሁንም ከልብ አመሰግናለሁ። እሁድ ሁላችንም እዛው እንገናኛለን። በአደባባይ ሚዲያም በሔርሜላ ቲቪ በተለያዩ የማሰራጫ ዘዴዎች ይሰራጫል። ለማትችሉ ብቻ እና አውት ኦፍ ስቴት ለሆናችሁ ብቻ ነው። እዚህ አካባቢ ዲኤምቪ ኤሪያ ያላችሁ ሁላችሁ ዋይት ሃውስ እሁድ 2 PM እንገናኛለን። በጣም እናመሰግናለን። ረጅም ጊዜ ነው የያዝናችሁ። ከዚህ በላይ ብዙ አናቆያችሁም። መርሃግብራችንን በዚህ ነው የምንፈጽመው። ቴንክ ዩ። በጣም አመሰግናለሁ። አዘጋጁንም አቤልንም እግዚአብሔር ይስጥልኝ።
እኛም እናመሰግናለን።
በጣም እናመሰግናለን። ታንክ ዩ ቬሪ ማች ሔርሜላ፣ ታንክ ዩ ከባዱ። የተከበራችሁ አደባባይ ሚዲያ ታዳሚዎቻችን እንደምታዩት ለኢትዮጵያ በኢትዮጵያውያን ይህንን ፕሮግራም አዘጋጅተን ጥሩ ጊዜ ያሳልፈናል። የምንመክረው የምንዘክረው የምንናገረው ለኢትዮጵያ ነው። አይዲዮሎጂ የለንም። የግል የምንሰደግፈው ግሩፕ የለንም። ለሰላም፣ ለፍቅር፣ ለእውነት ለሚሰራ ሁሉ እንቆማለን። ዛሬ ዓላማችን የኢትዮጵያ ሕዝብ ይበቃዋል። እንደማንኛውም የዓለም ሕዝብ በሰላም ሊኖር ይገባል። ሰላም ሊኖረው ይገባል። እድገት ሊኖረው ይገባል። እንደዚህ ያለው እርስ በርስ መገዳደል የአውሬ ቋንቋ ነው፣ የሰው አይደለም። ይሄንን እያዋገዝን ያለ ነው። በዚሁም እንቀጥላለን። ኢትዮጵያ ሰላም ውስጥ ይመጣ፣ ኢትዮጵያ በእድገት ስትቀጥል፣ ኢትዮጵያ በሰላም በመሪዎቿ ታዛዥ፣ ህዝቦቿ ገዢዎች ሆነው እስኪኖሩ ድረስ የኮራፕትድ የሆነ አሰራር እስኪቀር ድረስ በጠቅላላ እንናገራለን። ዛሬ ያደረግነው ይሄን ነው። የነበረን ጊዜ ወርቅ ነው። በጣም እናመሰግናለን ሔርሜላ ከባዱ። በሌላ ጊዜ እስክንገናኝ ድረስ ቀናችሁ የተባረከ ይሁን። ደህና ዋሉ። ደህና ምሽት።
Thank you, Adebabay. See you Sunday.